"Have you moved out yet?" said the eldest son's wife, Mary, smirking. I, who was treated like a criminal and kicked out of the house, couldn't help but smirk inwardly at her. "My name is Maria. I turned 60 this year. I've been a workaholic all my life, but in 5 years, I'll be retiring from my job. I have 2 sons. I used to live with one of them, my eldest son, Jason. After my husband passed away early, Jason, who lived alone, worried about me and invited me to live with him. After a while, he got married. His partner, named Mary, was a colleague he met at work. At that time, I suggested to him that I should move out, but he said it was fine for us to live together. So, I didn't leave Jason's house and continued to live as before. Of course, I thought Mary had happily accepted me living with them. A few months after Jason got married, the true nature of my daughter-in-law, Mary, began to show. She was supposed to be working, but suddenly quit her job. Jason was surprised at the time, but she brushed it off by saying, "We might have a child, right?" I thought it was fine if he was okay with it. However, instead of dedicating herself to household chores after quitting her job, she did nothing of the sort. All the cleaning and laundry were dumped on me. Most of Jason's meals were just pre-packaged side dishes transferred from the pack to the plate. I tried to speak up once, but my concerns were not welcomed. Rather, it seemed to have caused resentment, and I was accused of bullying the daughter-in-law. With such accusations, I was left with no recourse. It's their marriage, so I thought to leave them be, but I couldn't just ignore it when all the troublesome tasks were thrown my way. My work will soon end, and I'll receive my retirement benefits. Having worked decently, I expect to receive a decent amount. With that money, I could afford to rent a place and live on my own. I feel bad for Jason, who invited me out of concern, but I couldn't stand being nice in front of such a daughter-in-law anymore. Since then, I've been searching for a place to live while working. One day, Mary approached me with a smirk. "Do you have money, Maria? Why do you ask that all of a sudden? You've been looking for properties lately, right?" said Mary. Wondering what she was plotting, she suddenly grabbed my hand and started pleading. "If you have money, could you lend me some?" "What?" I was surprised by her request. When I said that she should be receiving living expenses from Jason, she began to cry exaggeratedly. "It's not enough. I receive living expenses from his salary, but he seems to be spending it on gambling and alcohol. And the money for me is getting less and less." "What?" I was shocked. Jason was always so serious and stiff. Gambling and alcohol. It seemed impossible, but as Mary sobbed and sniffled, she tried to garner my sympathy. "Even so. It's terrible. Won't you take my side, Maria? There are only enemies in this house for me. I want to go back to my parents' house. But I don't even have the money to go back. My phone also has been taken away." I couldn't believe Jason would do such a thing, but as she said, she didn't have the phone she had shown me before. Shocked to learn this new side of my son, I was taken aback. "How much are you short?" "Jason only gives me $100 a month for living expenses." "What? Maria, could you give me $400 for living expenses?" I was puzzled by her statement. That's not enough money to live on. What is my son hiding? As I suspected, Mary quickly began to prepare to leave the house after receiving $400. Suddenly, "Where are you going?" "I have to hide it. If this gets out, I'll be back late," she said and left for somewhere. I thought it was flashy for going to hide something, but since Mary always liked flashy clothes, I didn't feel anything was amiss at the time. After Jason came home, I immediately confronted him with what I heard from his wife. "What's going on?" Jason's face turned red, and he bitterly spat out, "That woman. Mom, she tricked you." "What?" "Since we got married, her spending has been out of control. That's why I took over managing the money. If I gave her $1,000 a month for living expenses, she'd spend it all in less than half a month. She kept saying it wasn't enough and demanded my bank book or credit card," Jason said with anger in his voice. I couldn't believe he was lying given his serious demeanor. I took away her cell phone because she was cheating. When I asked her to show me the contents, there was clear evidence. She was spending my salary on another man. I was shocked by Jason's words. I couldn't believe such problems were occurring between the two of them, who had only recently married. I thought it was best not to get too involved, so I knew nothing about this. The money you lent her is probably already gone. You must never lend her money again. I could only nod strongly at his words. After hearing from Jason, my distrust of Mary grew even more. Since then, she has asked me for money several times, but I've evaded and dodged her requests. Gradually, her mood worsened, and she began to lash out at me. It's because you're here that he won't give me any salary. We can't afford to support you. If you leave, we'd have more room in our budget. You understand, right? Every time we passed each other, she made me her enemy and complained. Why do I have to endure so much? Your mother is always at home, either on the computer or watching TV. I saw her yelling at Jason like that. He kept trying to calm her down, but she wouldn't listen in her anger. I've felt increasingly uncomfortable in this house and recently started using cafes as my place to use the computer. I wanted to escape from her even for a little while. Then one day, she called me out. Maria, won't you move out? Why? To be honest, our household finances are tight. We don't have the money to support you. You're not retired yet and you have a job, right? Though you spend your days wandering and just staring at the computer, I'm not sure if that counts as work. She said, snickering. I'm saying I want you to stop leeching off my husband. I was so shocked by her words that I couldn't speak. I've never taken living expenses from Jason. I live a frugal life and don't waste money. I'm not being supported by Jason. Do you even know my job? I don't care. But it must be some low-paying job since you're always at home on the computer. Mary laughed. Angered by her attitude, I raised my voice, don't be ridiculous. I serve as a financial advisor in a company. Simply put, I'm a certified public accountant. That's why I'm always on the computer at home. I can't believe it. How can someone your age have such a role? Are you even sure you can use a computer? Say whatever you want. I couldn't stand her terrible attitude any longer, and finally, I said, enough. I'm leaving. But wait a bit. I'll leave as soon as I find a place. Don't forget what you said, okay? Please leave as soon as possible. She said, laughing triumphantly. As I watched her, I came up with a plan. I wanted to get back at this infuriating daughter-in-law. I told Jason about my plan to leave. At that time, I made a proposal to him. After thinking it over, he agreed to consider my proposal since he had been thinking about it for some time. To execute my plan alone, I made sure to inform Mary in advance. I'll take all my things with me when I leave. You better do that. This house isn't your storage room, she said. She gave me a smug face. While glaring at her, I proceeded with the preparations to move out. Jason seemed to be doing well too, as he reported back to me with a bright face for the first time in a while. After spending a few days like that, Mary began urging me to leave again. When exactly are you leaving? It's amazing how you can spend your days here with a clear conscience, stealing my husband's salary. Maybe getting older makes you shameless? Her sarcasm started early in the morning. As I mostly ignored her and continued with the household chores, she looked clearly displeased with me. Ah, it's so unsettling to have a thief in the house. Just being a mother-in-law makes me cautious, can't you at least go out somewhere? She said loudly from the bathroom so I could hear. Feeling irritated by her, I took my work tools and left the house. Finally, she's gone. Such a nuisance. She said loudly enough to be heard at the entrance, laughing gleefully. She could only say that for now. Using my professional skills, I started tracking her behavior. That's when I discovered her secret. Upon finding out, I immediately contacted Jason. Hearing my story, he was shocked, but he was relieved to have finally made a decision. Now I could give Mary a taste of her own medicine. Treating me like a criminal and spending Jason's salary was the lowest of the low. I had to make sure my plan succeeded to make her reflect thoroughly. It was necessary for Mary to remain unaware until then. Don't let it slip, just go about your usual routine. I'll introduce you to a good person, so go meet the person this weekend. After work is fine. I'll send you the contact details. Thank you. I'll make sure it doesn't seem unnatural and talk to them after work. Jason said, his voice downcast but determined. Praising myself for being his mother, I decided to proceed with the plan. Mary, unaware of our movements, had been talking about planning a trip a month ago. Jason and I saw this as an opportunity and quickly proceeded with our preparations. Today was the day. Mary was all dressed up and excited from the morning. How will you manage the money? I asked. Everything would be paid for by him, she replied, smiling happily. Suspicious. The atmosphere clearly indicated it wasn't just a friend. Seeing Jason there with a bitter expression, I figured it was probably a trip with her affair partner. After telling Jason to keep an eye on her, he said, "It's okay," with a complex look on his face. I could understand his feelings. Being betrayed by someone he loved and married would take me days to recover from, too. After confirming that Mary had left the house with a large carry-on bag in the morning, we each started to move. A few minutes later, 2 moving trucks arrived in front of the house. I called in advance for this day. After ensuring all my belongings were loaded, I called Mary. I'll be out by today. Then I'll call you again tonight to check. Finally, you're leaving. I thought you were going to parasite here forever. She spoke in a pleased tone. She must be smirking smugly on the other end of the phone. However, her house was almost empty. But leaving only her belongings behind. Jason looked around the empty house and placed his wedding ring the most visible spot. Also, could you leave this too? But this. We had an argument before, and I thought this would prove it. I handed him a copy of my salary statement, saying that. Surprised by the amount, he realized this was the salary I had always received. I didn't know you earned this much. I'll take after you, Mom. Strive to do your best. I smiled at him and got into the car. At night, as promised, Mary called me. Have you moved out yet? Her tone was so sneering, it was palpable. It was utterly distasteful. Yet, knowing I would never have to see her face again felt refreshing. I gave her a brief reply, and she quickly hung up. I called Jason. Did everything go well? Have you properly explained to your workplace, in-laws, relatives, and siblings? Yeah, I had plenty of time, so I managed to explain everything to everyone. Did your move go smoothly? Yes, I found a lovely place. When everything settles down, come visit me. Of course. I'll bring my brother along too. Jason sounded relieved and brighter than before. I felt relieved at his change and decided to wait for Mary's next move. A few days later, I received a frantic call. Recognizing the number and name, I knew it was her. She must be bewildered by the empty house and her husband's disappearance. I had already told Jason not to answer. I made sure to advise that, if possible, our whereabouts should remain completely unknown to Mary. Hello? Maria. Jason is in trouble. Her panicked voice was piercing. I quickly switched to speaker mode. What happened? Jason is gone, he left, it's like a disappearance. Nothing is left behind, and even his clothes and belongings are gone. It must be your doing, right? Where is he? I don't know. I've already left the house, so please don't drag me into your problems anymore. Where are you, Maria? I'll come to pick him up. Unfortunately, Jason isn't with me. If you want, I can switch to the camera and show you my room. I switched to video call and showed her the inside of my room. She was speechless, perhaps finally convinced. You should try contacting relatives or his workplace. I've already done that. But he's not there. They told me he took a few days off. I don't know where he is. How am I supposed to live from now on? You should work and earn for yourself. Well, you have debts, so I doubt you can live a wealthy life. When I mentioned her debts, Maria gasped in shock. How do you know about that? Did you think I wouldn't find out? I did a little digging into your affairs. It seems you've been taking money out of my son's salary to pay off your debts, right? And on top of that, you're still financially supporting your lover despite everything. I suppose the trip was with your lover, wasn't it? Jason knew about it. And that's why he left to cool off. He'll contact you eventually. Hearing this, Mary was shocked into silence, unable to respond for a while. Finally, when she spoke again, she attempted to sweet-talk me. By the way, I saw your salary statement. You earn so much? I didn't know and said some rude things. I want to apologize. Can you tell me where you live? I want to apologize in person. I don't need it. You're probably just saying that to borrow money, aren't you? I won't fall for your lies anymore. No, that's not it. I really am in trouble, and I was hoping for a little help, but, for now, I just want to apologize. Why don't you stop the charade? I'm done dealing with you. You wanted this, after all, right? I said and hung up the phone. And immediately contacted Jason. He mentioned he would call her the next day to confront her. After ending the call with me, it seems she had been incessantly calling Jason's phone. He answered once without saying anything, then hung up, not giving her any chance to latch on. Desperate without any financial support, Mary was likely struggling to keep him by her side. Not knowing what kind of person her lover was, but not being able to rely on him indicates his worth. Jason, unaware of her debts until I informed him, no longer had to worry about being burdened by them. Finally, we were free from the trouble. I stood tall, looking around my new home while dedicating myself to work. A few days later, Jason called her to demand a divorce. She clung to him, but he decisively rejected her with a simple, "I won't forgive you." Returning to his job, Jason expressed his gratitude to his bosses and colleagues with sweets for their support. It was my suggestion to help him disappear from her radar. Anticipating she would inquire about his whereabouts, I had also prepared by reaching out to our extended family and in-laws. As a result, she was cornered from all sides. Having brazenly gone on a cheating trip, this retaliation was well-deserved. Above all, for trying to cast me out as a criminal, I hoped she would deeply reflect on her actions. Following this, Mary found herself overwhelmed with her accumulated debts. Even her parents, unable to forgive their daughter's atrocious treatment of her husband, turned her away. Eventually, they disowned her, leaving her without anyone to turn to. Furthermore, her lover abandoned her upon realizing she was out of money, revealing his true colors as well. Now, at 65 and having retired, I'm living a comfortable life with more retirement funds than expected.